Okay.
Okay, people, welcome to Angela's Caches, angelascaches.org. This is Angie Disney. I'm just going to have a chat. It may be off the record or it may be released later, but I'm going to talk to a very brave woman called Lillian, who is desperate to try and get her voice heard and desperate to try and get some justice. And I'm going to let her tell her story. So go ahead, Lillian, tell us a little bit. I don't have Lillian on camera for no other reason that her internet connection is not strong enough. But Lillian, if you introduce yourself and tell people, just tell people a little bit about who you are and what's happened.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Angela. I'm from Limerick, and I'm 41 years of age. And when I was 38, I had a miscarriage, which brought an awful lot of memories back of SRA and human trafficking and brainwashing and all kinds of paedophile rings. And I grew up in a very small village, and everybody around me knew what was going on, but of course I lived in silence, you know. And everybody knew, but nobody said anything. Nobody kind of built a bridge to try and get me out of there, you know. And the other factor also is that an uncle of mine is a politician here in Limerick, and he was very much behind my human trafficking as well. And so that was all my human rights were compromised.
Okay, so for people, I'm just going to take this slowly. For, for people that don't know what SRA is, it's satanic ritual abuse.
Yeah, that's right.
And I totally understand the thing about a miscarriage triggering memories, because I've had experience where I have a very strange reaction to anesthetic. So if I go in for surgery and I'm given anesthetic, those drugs I get deprogrammed, I get memories come back to me and so on and so forth. But before we talk about the flashbacks from 38, did you have any memories or any proof or any knowledge of abuse in your childhood before your miscarriage?
I hadn't any consistent support around memories because there was a lot that was swept under the carpet, and I had very bad traumatic amnesia, and both sides of my family were involved in this. And
but when you say this, I'm not being adversarial with you. I'm just asking you to recall, before the flashbacks really started to consolidate, 4 years ago. Because I've been through this. I had memories from the first 8 years of my life, but they were only little fragment memories. And I didn't know about drugging, so I didn't understand. I thought they can't be real memories because I don't remember the beginning and I don't remember the end.
Exactly. But that's what I
tell me what you knew and what was swept under the rug, just to set the stage for this. Tell me what you knew and what you remembered before the miscarriage.
Well, I would have had sometimes flashbacks, especially if I was feeling vulnerable, feeling like my back was to the wall, particularly when I was in the shower and I had my eyes closed. I would have some terrible flashbacks of reptiles and different things like that. But I had no proof, you see. I had no one to confirm any of it. So everything I remembered sounded crazy without proof.
Okay, so things like, and I'm again trying to give you the biggest voice possible, things like talking of reptiles, although there's biblical evidence of, fallen angels mating with humans and creating giants and hybrids, and the technology's all out there. But if you say I had flashbacks of reptiles in the shower, 90% of normal people are going to go, oh my God, what's she talking about?
Yeah, exactly. But it's almost like it's designed that every time I open my mouth, and I'm only remembering all this in the last 2 years, but it's like every time I would open my mouth and try and describe something that I experienced out loud. Even when I'm trying to do it now, but like before, we'll say the Great Awakening about 2 years ago, I had no one to turn to, and I had no one to confirm this. And I was also going in and out to psychiatrists and counsellors, but I dare mention this to them because I was afraid that they would think I was crazy, you know.
Okay, and I'm just going to rewind it because what I'm trying to do is build a foundation so that what you've got to say from the last 4 years is heard. So the foundation I'm trying to build is, do you have any concrete, and it's fine if you don't, because paedophilia is the best kept secret, because by nature there's no witnesses, and if there are witnesses, they're compromised. But is there any evidence in your family, any court cases, any allegations that went to GPs or teachers or counsellors? Is there anything solid in your child?
No, I don't have anything solid in my hand. Like, I don't have any proof, but I do have a lot of memories to support it. And
so
also,
are you saying that you had, other than flashbacks in the shower under stress, you had no other inkling before the last 4 years? Is that what you're saying?
I did. I did feel that there was kind of covert incest. You know, I read up a lot on stuff like this. I did a PhD in English, and I did my PhD on psychosis. And I was looking at schizophrenia through deconstruction and philosophy and consciousness, and I was really trying because I knew there was some kind of a doubt or a question in me, and I couldn't get any proof, you know. But I could tell sometimes that people were sort of taking second glances at me, you know, that I was in. It was like even socially, I was going around in a kind of a glass box. I couldn't ever really connect or relate to people, but I knew that there was an awful lot of secrets. It was almost like a conspiracy. But you know, if you were to go and say to a doctor that you think there's a conspiracy, you know, you're going to come across as being paranoid and crazy.
Again, I'm gonna try and ground this again. So I hear you, because I'm researched on this and I've done a lot of background work on this, but I'm trying to get this so that normal people, normal guards, good guards, there are some, normal psychiatric workers can hear what we're saying, because if we come across like we're talking crazy shit, then it's going to be just perpetuate the myth that people. So I'm asking you as well, just give me a bit of background if you're comfortable doing this. You know, did you have any mental health issues in your teenage years? Do you have amnesic barriers? Do you have missing memories?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I do.
Like it's only a little bit.
Yeah. It's only when I began to remember that I realized that there was huge areas, huge chunks of my childhood that were missing. Before I woke up, I used to try to think of my childhood sometimes, but I couldn't. You know, I couldn't remember huge events that took place.
Okay.
I mean, I was out in the sticks, and the only two institutions were the family and school.
Yes.
So all I could remember as a continuous kind of a narrative in my life was going to school and going to college and trying to make plans to go.
Talk to me just a little bit. Let me just do one more thing to focus, just to make a foundation. What do you remember up to the age of 8?
Is this before I remembered?
Yeah. Just tell me what your memories were before the last 4 years, flashbacks.
Yeah.
So, say if I asked you at 25, what were the first 8 years of your life like? What would you remember? I think
the only.
Sorry.
No, you're great. I think the only thing I would have been able to remember is maybe making my first communion.
Okay.
And ponies and pets that we had, you know, but I could, because I had more of an emotional connection to animals than I had to people, really.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And was there any scandal in your family that was swept under the rug that you would have remembered? Was there any, oh my goodness, this happened, but nobody talked about it, or anything like that?
Not consciously, no, not consciously. And now that I'm regaining memories, it's very frustrating looking back.
Yeah.
You know, but I was totally overpowered.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that I never had a chance to have my say in anything that ever happened in my life. You know, there
So
was
do you mean as a child and a teenager? I'm not meaning to be
as
tough with you at all.
as
You were
as
just
a child.
compliant. Were you very compliant?
I was. I think I was. I think I was. I think I was terrified. I think I can see that now. I was. I was very overwhelmed. I think I was a people pleaser just to try and survive. You know.
Yeah. And did you go to convent schools and Catholic schools? You sound like you got a great education.
Oh, I did. Oh, I did. I went to a convent school, and they really the presentation order, and I was very lucky with the some of the teachers that I had in primary school. There was one in particular, Sister Magdalene, and she taught me for 3 years in primary school, third, fourth, and sixth class, and she had a huge impact on me.
Okay.
And I think she really helped me an awful lot. She was emotionally, she was a great support, and she was a very good teacher, and she had a very high standing in the convent. And she looked out, she shielded me from an awful lot of what was going on. Even when she couldn't physically be there, emotionally, she guarded me an awful lot, you know.
And was there, again, thank you, now we're getting to kind of paint a little picture, because
Yeah.
it's important to paint a picture, even if our memories are only partial. Was there any violence at home? And you said you've got at least one side of your family is a politician, a
Yeah.
well-known politician. I know you've shared that name with me, and we'll share it maybe later, but not
Yeah.
now. So your family was in quite high social standing. They were politicians and so on and so forth.
Yeah, they were in one sense, but in another, I think, you know, people who lived around in different villages and stuff. I mean, you know, they weren't stupid. I mean, I think they saw through a lot of the veneer that my
Okay, I've lost you. We've lost connection.
family were trying. So
Okay, we lost you there for a second.
yeah, I just saying that, like, even though my family tried to build this veneer of respectability in politics or whatever.
That's what I'm trying to get to you. You just pointed it there. You said that your family tried to give off an illusion of being pillars of the community, but
exactly,
the neighbours saw through it. So what did they see through? What was the secret at that stage?
Well, you see, we lived on out on a country road, but we lived on the road. We didn't live in a passage or anything, thanks be to God, because if we did, the neighbours wouldn't have been able to come in sometimes. They heard us screaming. They heard, you know, so the neighbours, a lot of the neighbours over the years, they did come and help.
So when you say they were screaming, are you telling me, as far as you recalled, it was violence or anything else?
Oh, it was very violent, and there was a lot of extended family around who would have known the severity of the sexual abuse. So it wasn't a well kept secret, you know.
Okay. All right. So now I'm getting an idea. So there was sexual abuse and violence going on at home.
Yeah.
And then there was the facade of respectable family involved in politics and so on.
Exactly.
But there were neighbours that knew different and heard screams and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
And so none of, how many children have you got, brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I had two siblings. I have one older sister. We're not in contact at all. She's 2 years older than me. She lives in London.
Okay.
And I had a younger brother. He was 6 years younger than me, and he passed away, unfortunately. He was only 21. He died out on holidays, and but I think there's more to that story also.
How did he die? I'm sorry for that. How did he die, if you don't mind me asking?
He drowned. He was on one of these booze cruises, and he drowned, and he was left there. He went out with a bunch of friends, and they just left him there. And then they went off to the nightclub, and then it was the following morning that another tourist, who was a nurse, found his remains. You know,
and his
but
body.
there's an awful lot of Satanism around different areas of where I grew up. You know, and
I believe you. There's a Hellfire Club. I don't know if you know anything about the Hellfire Clubs, but there's a Hellfire Club operating in Limerick, and there's another one in Dublin, I think Maynooth maybe. There are 3 hellfire clubs still operating in Ireland, and I've had reports of satanic ritual abuse from Meath and Dublin so far. So you're talking about Limerick, but I also...
And Limerick, yeah.
And Offaly, I've had reports from Offaly as well.
Yeah,
So,
I'd say Cavan maybe as well. I'm not sure. I don't know why I saw it.
No, Cavan's showing up as well. But
Yeah.
the thing is, because this is so mind-blowing to the normal person, I'm trying to ground it so that people can see this is not a crazy person. This is someone with a PhD.
I wouldn't. Yeah, well, I wouldn't have believed it myself, and I know now. I remember now at times people coming in trying to speak to me, trying to rescue the situation, but my mind was so brainwashed that I couldn't testify even if I wanted to. You know?
Okay, all right. So I'm going to leave alone the grounding of the childhood, even though that's important, and we might come back to that. But I'm going to go ahead now and to what you've remembered. When you say you've remembered recovered memories, which is very common, but this has been trying to be exposed since at least the 80s, and what they said back then was, oh, these are fabricated memories, they're planted by social workers and psychiatrists and people like me. So I'm gonna did you have any hypnosis, or did you do any regression therapy?
No, I didn't do any of that. I mean, you see, I had no complaints. Like physically, I recovered very, very quickly, but I had no other complaints apart from, I suppose, anxiety, severe anxiety, and depression. They were kind of the most common complaints I had.
2 more questions, and then I'm going to go back to 4 years ago. Were you diagnosed at any time before the miscarriage with mental health issues?
Oh, I was. Yeah, I was diagnosed with borderline
personality disorder. Yeah.
Yeah, and borderline personality. Yeah, I was.
What age was that?
I think I was. I was in my 20s. I was in my. I can't rightly remember. I think I was maybe 19 or 20 or so. You know.
So on the one level, you're getting the most amazing education, and you go on to do a PhD. Yeah. And on the other hand, you're getting diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and other things.
Exactly.
So
and all
you're
that
already
stuff,
showing signs of something's up. There's a wounding here.
Oh, definitely. But I was afraid of anyone finding this out because they would use it against me, you know? But it's the same old rinse and repeat. But I did my PhD on psychosis, and I looked into mental health acts, and I looked into all of that. I graduated in 2009. Wow. But it's now, I knew theoretically when I had graduated that I had been sexually abused.
Okay.
But I still could not remember.
Okay, I got you. Now, and one more thing I want to ground it in, because there's 2 areas where that kind of childhood trauma, even if it's not consciously remembered, it can show up in mental health issues, and it also can show up in relationship challenges. So did you have a successful married, healthy relationship?
No. I kind of went blindly from one relationship to another because I had no blueprint on how to trust people.
Okay.
And I had no, I'm not the type either that to go looking over somebody's shoulder to see who they belong to, who they're connected to. I try and take people as I find them.
Yeah. Certain naivety. So do you have children? Are you married? Are you divorced?
No, I'm not married. I remember now in the last 2 years since I started to remember. I remember having had children, but I was never a parent. I mean, they were whipped away from me before I could even name them.
Okay, so no children in your custody, and the thing that triggered the memories for you was a miscarriage 4 years ago. So then
it was about 2 years ago. Yeah, it was just over 2 years ago. Yeah.
Okay, now tell me what happened and what you remembered.
Well, I had to take medication for the miscarriage. It was a missed miscarriage. So I take this medication anyway, and it was very severe emotionally in every way, and it was very
How
tough.
many weeks pregnant were you?
I think I was just short of 3 months.
And how was it
And
missed? What do you mean it was missed? Did you not know you were pregnant?
no, I knew I had the symptoms of pregnancy, and but the fetus didn't attach properly or something like this, they explained to me. So I still had the symptoms of being pregnant, but when I went for the scan, it actually turned out that it was a miscarriage, but it just didn't pass, so I had to take medication.
Okay. So you had to take medication to try and expel the fetus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that took quite a toll on my system, and
do you remember what the medication was?
I can't rightly remember off the top of my head, no, but I remember I left the maternity with that medication, and the doctor didn't give me any painkillers. So I really was a wreck, but it was about 10 weeks.
So you'd had the symptoms of pregnancy,
Yeah.
gone for a scan, and they've said, no, this pregnancy is not going to carry, it hasn't attached, it's a
exactly,
non-starter. And normally they could have induced you and given you a D&C, or they could have had a way to have you expel the baby. Yeah. But you're saying they just sent you home with some tablets and said it'll come out naturally.
That's it, yeah.
The point I'm making as well is that people that have suffered severe childhood trauma, and I'm talking brain pathway altering severe, that they have a very strong reaction to certain drugs. So it would be good to find out what those drugs they sent you home from hospital were, because that also could have contributed to your deprogramming.
Yeah, and also when you say about going under general anesthetic, I've had to go under general anesthetic a few times on and off, just for minor stuff, on and off over the years. And when I wake up from the anesthetic, I'm very, very ill, very, very physically ill from it. So I think that's part of it too.
Okay. All right, good. So you came home from hospital with these meds and you were really ill. Keep telling me.
Yeah, I took the medication, and I had about a week after that I lost my job.
What was your job? Do you mind me asking what you worked at?
At the time I worked as a coder, a medical coder.
Wow. And you lost your job
did you lose your job? I lost that job. It was at the end of my probation. So there was that as well. Sorry?
No, I'm just saying, did you lose it because of your ill health?
No, I think that there just weren't enough jobs in there for all the workers that they brought in. They could sort of pick and mix whatever they wanted.
Was it a foreign corporation you were working for?
Sorry?
Was it an overseas corporation that you were working for?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
It was an American company, an American coding company.
Okay. Do you want to share what that company was, or not if you don't feel comfortable?
Well, I think it's a small American company here in Limerick. I think they've changed their name since, actually.
Okay, so you did a 3-month probationary period and then they let you go. Okay, so carry on. Sorry.
Well, no, I was there about 8 or 9 months, and I had the miscarriage just towards the end of it, and I went back into work for about a week, and then that was the end of the probationary period, and they let me go.
Okay.
So and at the time, when I found out I was pregnant, I moved back to the home farm, my parents' home farm, and I lived in the house next door with my partner. And of course, my parents constantly putting pressure on me. They were looking for rent and all this. So I was mad dashing, looking around for a job just after a miscarriage and just after being sacked. And now I'm running around trying to find a job in the middle of all the symptoms still of the miscarriage. They were there for a couple of weeks.
And what about the partner? Was he working?
He was working, yeah, he was. But He's working in construction, so construction is, you know, you might have a couple of weeks here and then a couple of weeks there or whatever, you know.
So he wasn't able to provide to the level that your parents wanted rent and all the rest of it.
Yeah, exactly. But when he came in to visit my parents were treated him like they treated every other boyfriend I ever had. You know, they wouldn't even hardly look him in the eye. You know.
Okay. Okay.
And past boyfriends of mine who were treated like this by my parents often said to me, "Oh, your parents don't like me," all this sort of thing, you know. But my parents always made me very, very nervous when I ever introduced them to a partner, because
And that's
it's
part,
like they were,
possibly part of that can be if your family on the exterior were ambitious and political and trying to be pillars
yeah,
of the community, and you'd got a great convent education and you've got a
yeah.
degree and a master's and then a PhD, so they may have felt you pairing up with a construction worker was beneath you. That that.
Well, I went out with guys from different professions. When I was doing my PhD, I went out with a guy who was doing a PhD, and he came and visited my parents, and it was the same. It was the same sort of coldness. Do you know what I mean?
Right. So nobody
So,
would do. Okay.
yeah, no,
So you're
nobody,
running
no.
around,
But I
you're
think,
on meds, you're traumatized, you're
yeah,
on meds, you've lost your job after 8 months of no contract working for a foreign company,
yeah,
and your parents are putting pressure on you. You have to pay rent. So you're
yeah,
running around looking for a job. Carry on from
yeah,
there.
exactly. So I ended up getting a job that I did part-time online, teaching English online. You know.
Okay.
And the stress of it was building and building. So eventually one evening inside in the house, now this house that I was living in at the time, it was the house that I actually grew up in. And
Wow.
my parents moved next door to the old farmhouse that my uncle sold them when I
Okay.
was about 18.
Okay.
So in this bungalow I was living in at the time, there was an awful lot of memories, and all around the house, all in the atmosphere, all over the place. It was like the
Okay.
place was haunted.
Okay. So you're getting triggered. You're on meds and you're
Yeah,
triggered by it.
absolutely triggered, but still no memory to try and make sense of it.
Okay.
But in about after a couple of weeks, I was at home one day and my partner was out working, and I could feel this awful kind of a black heaviness around me the whole time. And
Okay.
I could feel like I was being haunted, and my partner was coming in and out, and I couldn't communicate with him. It was like I was in this kind of a glass box again,
Yeah.
but I was really trapped in it, you know?
Yeah.
And it was almost like demonic, and I couldn't get out. I couldn't reach to him. He knew something was seriously wrong, and he couldn't reach into me.
Yeah.
So there was kind of tension created, and that just made everything worse. But one evening he came back from work, and he was down in the bedroom. I was up in the living room watching a documentary on rape. Actually, it was on Channel 4. And halfway through the program, I started to get these massive, massive flashbacks of physically and mentally of being raped by my father.
Wow.
And I had a massive panic attack, and it kept reeling in my mind and in my body. I could feel it. And I crawled off the couch, and I could hardly breathe at this stage. And all I could see were all the images in my mind, you know. So I started to crawl down the corridor, down to my partner, down in the room. And I burst into the room, and I said to him, "I was raped," I said, "all over this house, you know." And he helped me to come back, to get my breathing back, and to get my focus, vision back, and everything. But I could see flashes everywhere when I couldn't remember it for over 30 years, but now it all came flooding back to me.
Wow. Wow.
And my partner, he put me into the car, and we went straight to the local police station that was open.
Wow.
And that was about 20 minutes drive away. And in that time, it took me about an hour to come around to get into the car. But in that hour and a half, I could remember at least 5 family members that were involved in my abuse.
Oh.
And I went into the police station, and I told them straight off. My partner was with me. I was shaking, like. But these were so vivid, these images, and I listed off 5 people, and the guard, when he was taking the report, he repeated back one of the people to me, because that was the politician.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, absolutely. I said,
And he was an
that's
uncle. Was he an uncle of yours?
he's an uncle of mine. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
let me just slow you down here as well. You know, when you go to report rape, even historical rape, there's supposed to be, I think, a vanguarder present, and
Yeah.
you're allowed to have, I don't know if you're allowed a support person, but it's also supposed to be recorded. So was that disclosure recorded?
I don't know. I mean, they brought me into another room, and maybe they turned on cameras. I think there was cameras there, maybe, but they didn't really
Was
say.
it one or two guards that interviewed you, and were they both men or women or what?
The two of them were men. The two of them were men. Yeah. Now we did go into the station about 10:30 at night, like.
Did they let your husband go in with you?
They did. They let him come in. They let him come in
All right,
and
so
sit down.
they took a disclosure from you, and you don't know if it was recorded. Right.
No, but what they did was they said that they'd send it to Henry Street in Limerick to the Protective Services, and they called me then the following Monday. It was a Wednesday night that I started to wake up, and the following Monday then. But my partner and I, like, we had to run out of that house, and we had no savings, and we had to run out of the house, and luckily, like, my partner believed me. He believed me straight away, and he held my hand and got me through it. And we were homeless for a couple of months, and it was really, really
Say
tough.
homeless. I hear you, and I know people that are homeless. Where did you stay?
I stayed initially with a friend of ours, but like my trauma was severe. Like it, I mean, it was coming all the time. So I went down to Adapt House in Limerick, and they more or less turned me away because it was a historical case.
What's
But also,
Adapt House? I just have to keep slowing you down so
yeah,
it makes sense.
yeah, Adapt
What's
House
Adapt
is
House?
it's a refuge for women of domestic abuse in Limerick.
And why would you go? Oh, okay, because of the domestic abuse from your parents and uncles and so on. But where was your partner when you went into the refuge?
He was out at work, and I just
sleep? I mean, where did he stay while you were homeless in the refuge?
Well, he stayed with a friend of his. He stayed kind of couch surfing, you know. But I literally
So your
needed
partner
to
was
lie.
couch surfing, and you were in a women's refuge. But
Yeah.
okay, and then
No, I wasn't. I wasn't in Adapt House. I went in there, and they turned me away out the door because the woman that I met there, I met her a couple of years before that because of other domestic abuse. And she, I believe that, like, her attitude and the way she turned me away, I think it's because Limerick is a very, very small place.
right.
And I had told her when I first met her a few years ago that who my uncle was, you know.
Yeah.
And then I went in and met the very same woman, and she couldn't get rid of me fast enough.
Wow.
So then I went down to Focus Ireland, and they got me a room in Thomond House. Now, if I hadn't been able to sleep, literally straighten myself and sleep on a bed, before that I was sleeping on a couch or sleeping on the floor for a couple of days. And with the flashbacks I was having, I could not cope with it. I just could not cope with it.
Yeah, you should have had a place of support. I've said this a lot. There is no residential support for sexual abuse survivors in our.
There isn't. No, there isn't.
So you can go for alcohol addiction, you can go for drug addiction, you can go for rehab, you can go to women's refuges, but there are no residential facilities where somebody in trauma and in flashback says, I need somebody to make sure I eat and I sleep and I'm safe.
Exactly.
There's nothing. So I hear you on that. So basically, fleeing from the house beside your parents, it split you up from your partner. So you've had the miscarriage, and then you flee, and then you're given a hostel or whatever, and he's couch surfing with friends. Were you still seeing each other? Was he still supporting you?
Yeah, we were. I mean, we still support each other, you know. Like we weren't going out that long, like when all this blew up in our face, you know. But he said to me, you know, you wouldn't see anyone go through this on their own, you know what I mean? And he did believe me, you know.
And he was the father of the child that you lost.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so carry on telling me from there then. If I'm sorry if this is tough on you.
No, it's fine. I made the initial contact with the police, then we ran out of there and we were homeless. And but in the meantime, the police were, you know, I kept contacting them to make a statement, you know, and I'm still in the process of that, you know.
And you went to the police on the Wednesday night, and then who contacted you on the Monday, and what did they do?
There was a liaison officer contacted me, and then she brought us in for a sit down and a talk about it, and I met some other specialists there, and they said they'd be in touch with us. And this was like coming up to Christmas, you know.
Yeah.
And we were homeless, and they said they'd be in touch in the new year. So it wasn't until the following April that they got back in touch.
Oh.
And I started to tell them some stuff, and they sent me straight up to the psychologist, which they had absolutely no right to do. So then I kept knocking on doors, knocking on wood.
Tell me if you can. Tell me the kind of stuff you started telling them that you remembered.
Well,
Go into some detail for me. You started.
Well,
the liaison officer from the police, from the Gardaí. So maybe it's reasonable when you start to disclose, and it involves a high-level politician, and you're discussing satanic ritual abuse. It may be reasonable that they said, "Okay, we need to get a professional here. We need to get a psychologist or something."
No, it wasn't. I didn't even get as far as. I don't think I even got as far as SRA, because I was talking to them for about an hour and a half.
Right.
And then I said to them that they asked me, did I have children? And I said, I remember having them. And they said, all right. And then we went off for lunch, and then they told me to come back after lunch, and I came back. And in the meantime, in that lunch hour, they'd called the psychologist.
Okay.
And then I came back, and you know, they told me to go straight up to him, you know. But the last thing I said to them was that I had kids, and they just weren't, you know, they just weren't.
So they're like, she's off in La La Land. She's talking about imaginary children that nobody knows where they are.
Exactly,
okay.
And I have no proof of it at all, you know. Okay. But that's what they did last April, 12 months ago, you know.
So April 2018.
I think it was April 2018, yeah.
Right, so they just tossed the ball and said, okay, here's a psychologist. She's talking about.
They passed the buck, yeah, they did.
Yeah, passed the buck.
And,
so they're saying, this is the niece of a prominent politician.
Yeah.
She's saying she was raped by multiple family members in her childhood.
Yeah.
And she's saying she had babies, but they weren't registered. And
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so carry on. So what's happened since then? Did you talk to the psychologist?
I did, yeah. I mean, the psychologist said that I was fit to testify, and then.
Now that's huge. Don't jump over that. That's huge. If the psychologist said you were fit to testify, that is huge. Did you get that?
It is, yeah.
Did you get that in writing? Did you record that or get it in writing?
I asked the psychologist to send to the police want that in writing. That's what the liaison officer said. Now, I also, the police officer that was interviewing me for the statement initially, she called the psychologist and said to him, because I had in the meantime typed up and written up notes and emailed to this specialist detective that takes, or she's not even a detective, she's a specialist interviewer or whatever. But I emailed her these notes, the flashbacks that I was having since that night, and she said, oh, you have to send that on to the psychologist. So I sent it on to him, and he read it through it, and he was like, well, you know, maybe it all didn't happen, but there's definitely truth in it, you know what I mean? And he agreed on that. And of course, the police wouldn't accept that. So they were pushing it back more. And that guard that I sent it to, she said to the psychologist, oh, we've done a look around in maternities that there's no children recorded in all this. So I went back and I rang the liaison officer, and I repeated this back to her, and she said, oh, well, we can't make those searches until after you've your statement made. So I'm already being lied to, you know.
So she's saying they can't investigate until you've made a statement.
Exactly.
And what was stopping you from making a statement then?
The police were stopping it. I mean, like the psychologist said I was fine, and then the
Did you ever get it in writing? Did the
I didn't actually get it in writing because the psychologist said that he would send down the letter to the police, you know.
And have you done a freedom of information request to find out if he sent a letter?
I didn't. No, I didn't.
Right. So that's in just the meantime, proof. I just want to write this down because it's very important. Proof of fitness to testify. So, and that is a lesson for others going forward, to always record everything. So if you had recorded that interview with the psychologist where he said, okay, I might not buy everything you're saying, but there's certainly enough truth in there for it to be, you know, worthy of testifying. And you're clearly, despite mental injuries, you're clearly fit to testify. Now, if that had been recorded, or if you do a freedom of information request and find out if that was put in writing to the police, that's a huge milestone.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
So what happened next was they had these bunches of sheets that I had written up my flashbacks on, and they were basically using it as a rope to hang me with. So
why?
Because it's so corrupt, because of the people that they're trying to protect, you know.
And,
so the psychologist
without being graphic, give me a couple of examples that would make them say this is not credible. Like the psychologist said, at least part of this is credible. Yeah. So why would the police say, no, it's not credible, she's crazy? Why would they deduce that?
Well, I don't know. They kept pushing it back anyway. So what happened anyway was that the psychologist said, look, we'll call the psychiatrist down in Willowdale, you know. Now I did not have to play ball there, but I did just to support the psychologist.
So are you saying they called in a different psychologist?
No, I went to the same psychologist.
Oh, same psychologist. Okay. So they said, right, keep seeing the shrink. Okay, carry on.
Yeah. So, and the shrink said I was fine. So what the psychologist said was, look, we'll contact the psychiatrist down in Willowdale. So just to support what he's saying. So I said, fine, okay, grand. I had to go into the police station. I had to sign this form so that they could send the email that I had given them. I didn't even have given them anything.
Okay. So it was a data release form for that.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so they referred you on to Willowdale. Yeah. Where's Willowdale?
So it's there in Limerick. It's public patients.
Right, so they sent you from psychology to psychiatry. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, and then I met the psychiatrist, and he was like, you know, how do you feel? And I said, I think I'm fine. I think I know my own mind at this stage. And he said, okay, that's fine. So we signed release forms, whatever notes they had taken on me. We signed that release form, sent it back to the police. And the police still weren't happy, so they said, "Well,
two lots of mental health people said this is worth going forward with," and the police still wouldn't go forward.
They still wouldn't go forward, and they said, "Well, the psychiatrist doesn't have these notes that that you've emailed us that we've sent on to the psychologist." So I was like, "Well, fine then, give him the goddamn goddamn attachment, let him fucking read it."
Yeah.
But then So I think I'm in to go soon down to him again, but it's all cat and mouse. It's all cat and mouse.
Okay, so they're giving you the runaround. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When did you first report historical rape within the family?
On the 22nd of November 2017. Now
Just slow down a bit. Let me just write this down. Yeah. 22, 11, 17 reported.
Yeah.
And still no action. So basically they're just sending you between a psychologist and a psychiatrist, both of whom have said, she's sound enough, there's enough there, go forward with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're saying the police still have done nothing.
Exactly. Now they have, I heard I got some advice from a solicitor. And that's another point. It's impossible in Limerick to get a solicitor because of who I am and who I am.
Yeah, I have the same problem. I have the same issues with my family. I just recently posted about that, and I have been given a couple of names of possible, one in Ireland and one in Canada, which is unfortunate, where you'd have to go for legal representation outside of the country. But
Crazy.
it is crazy. But I've tried so hard. I've gone to, for judicial, well, I didn't apply for a judicial review, but I reported to the Gardaí, I reported in England to the police. England, I have emails from them saying the Irish Gardaí are not cooperating.
No.
This one's not cooperating, that one's not cooperating. And I can't, up till now, I haven't been able to find a solicitor that will go forward with this. So I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
So tell me what happened. Tell me where we are now, bringing it up to date.
Well, where I am now is that I'm they're still waiting for some, I don't know, letter from the psychiatrist now to say that I'm okay. But the point that the police officer was making now, when I went back in, there was a new change in who was dealing with me. It was like it kind of went up a level or something. But I had been in contact with GSOC as well,
Yeah, tell me about that, because I've had experience, well, not me personally, but I've taken reports of where GSOC haven't done their job. So I'm going to just turn pages for notes here. Tell me what happened, because it'll be 2 years in November since you first reported.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I got some advice from a solicitor, and he said to me, "You have 2 years from the date of knowledge."
Wow. So yeah, it's possible you're being run out of time. Okay, so when did you report to GSOC?
It was a couple of months ago. I reported the carry on, and they were like, "Yeah, it's taken too long to make a statement. We agree with that,
Right.
And they said that maybe the ones who are handling it, maybe it's too big or whatever because it involves women trafficking.
Yeah.
And he said, "Would you be happy to
just tell me this part as well? Tell me, tell me what grounds you have to say it involves human trafficking. Tell me about that.
Well, there's quite a bit of it's tricky without going into a lot of detail. Do you know what I mean? But
tell me anything about that, just to anchor.
I was. You see, there's a lot of crimes under human trafficking. There's organ harvesting, which I went through. There's literally trafficking me from pillar to post under serious amount of drugs.
Okay.
And,
any idea what drugs were used?
I think amphetamines. I think there's a lot. I have tracked lines on the backs of my legs that I can see now because I've lost weight, and I can see. I can see. It's like my body was a foreign country. Do you know what I mean? And I'm only now starting to see the injuries with my memory.
And you have memories of being pimped out. Basically, that's what you're calling. Yeah.
That's basically it. Yeah.
Trafficking.
There was a paedophile ring.
Being given to others to abuse, either for money or for blackmail.
Exactly, yeah.
Pimped out, yeah, I hear you. Yeah. Right, so you went to GSOC when?
It was a couple of months ago.
This is September, so say July.
Yeah, I'd say it was around maybe May, June or something like that.
All right, so May, June. And then how long was it before they came back and said, yes, we agree, this is taking too long?
They weren't that long, actually. There was a few of them that called me back around child protection.
Did you get phone calls, or did you get emails or letters? Did you get anything recorded?
No, I just got phone calls, but they rang on the side of child protection to know if the people that were involved were still involved or had access to children.
So, and again, this is a lesson that can help other victims.
Yeah.
If you get phone calls from people like GSOC or people like the local Gardaí or people like the psychologist or the psychiatrist, you have to record and document these things, because when you go to say to people like the psychologist and the psychiatrist, can you confirm in writing that you consider me fit to testify? Or when you go to GSOC and say, can you confirm that you have upheld my allegation that this is taking too long? Then a phone call is not enough. They have to put something in writing.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. And that actually reminds me that I have actually well, I suppose I could go back through emails maybe, but it's very slippery, it's very, very slippery.
It's worth it. It's the perfect crime because the drugs that were used cause amnesia, and it's usually supposed to be amnesia for life, right? But certain things can deprogram it. A trauma can deprogram you. anesthetic or different drugs, for instance, like you were given after a miscarriage, can deprogram you. Kathy O'Brien says that cannabis can deprogram. There are different ways that people can start to recover memories that were deliberately buried with drugs or with brutality or with trauma. But, you know, proving it is just a mountain to climb. It's an absolute...
It is. It really is. It's so smoke and mirrors. It's so slippery.
But there have to be, if you come from a small rural area, and the neighbours kind of knew and turned a blind eye to evidence, that the only one of the benefits of going public is that other victims would come forward.
Exactly. You know?
Exactly. So I've been run out of time before as well, so I'm clear on this, and a good solicitor will overturn that and make a case that the trauma was so severe and it was not your fault that you were being run out of time and so on. But this is September, we've got 2 months.
2 months.
Yeah, so let's just pray, whichever way we handle this, whether we go public or not, let's just pray that you will not be run out of time and that you will get adequate legal representation. What happened to the solicitor that was helping you?
Well, he's in Limerick, and the psychologist recommended a solicitor to me, and he said he's going to want to sue your parents. So I went down and I met this man, and I called him, and
just hold on 1 second. Sorry, just hold on 1 second. I need to take care of something. Yeah, sorry, the dog was going on the grass that's been planted. Right, so we've got 2 months. So tell me about the solicitor. Where are you at with the solicitor?
Well, the solicitor, I went down and I met him on the recommendation of my psychologist. And I went down and I met him, and I had a strange sense of deja vu when I came out of the office that I'd met him before, and I had met people before. That's only coming up in my memory now, but he said, you know, he believed me and all the rest of it. And all this. Now, I didn't have to go into any great detail with him. He believed me, you know, but a couple of months later, anyway, I rang him, and he was gone from the office. He just disappeared out of the office, you know.
Wow. Do you mean he no longer worked there?
He no longer worked there, but I talked to one of his colleagues. I went in and met one of his colleagues, and I said, is so-and-so still here? And he said, he certainly is not. So I don't know whether he fell out with him or I don't know.
Right.
But I don't know what happened, but that solicitor never called me back to tell me he was moving or to tell me anything. I think he just dropped me as well, you know.
So basically, you have no legal representation to speak of.
No, well, I have solicitors in Dublin, all right, that'll take the civil side of it, because I emailed them all my notes as well, and they're looking for the statement. I mean, the police are holding an awful lot of stuff up, you know.
So have the police taken I know you were taken in a room and you don't know if it was recorded on the night you went there.
Yeah.
But are you telling me the Gardaí have not taken a formal statement from you?
They haven't, no. And another friend of mine was giving me advice on a C8 form, and they're actually the forms that the police use. But he gave me a link to it, and I printed off a C8 form. And I wrote out my own statement on it. You know, I condensed a lot of my notes, and I wrote out that statement, and I brought it into them, and they are supposed to sign it, but they wouldn't sign it.
Have you been given a pulse number?
No, I was just about to say that. No, I haven't given that either. And I asked the detective inside about it, and she was like, "I'm your pulse number. I am your pulse number." She said to me.
No, that's not adequate.
No, that's not right either. No. So
So what I'd like you to do is to send me by email, if you don't mind, a copy of your flashbacks and memories.
Sure.
Because I don't want to grab, this is why I redirected you when you said you had flashbacks of reptiles. We can't even go there until we create a foundation of credibility.
Exactly, yeah.
And to create a foundation of credibility when you've been drugged and it involves high-level politicians, your best hope is to have other victims, survivors come forward.
Exactly.
And that's why it's probably a good idea that we're not mentioning, we're not naming names at this stage.
Yeah.
Other victims come forward, and like I said to you when you first contacted me, write, I don't know if you're able, I'm not fully able to do this yet, but write this down, or at least do what you're doing now, which is to get it out in a broadcast.
Exactly.
The thing is to keep getting it out there in such a way that you're not making a narrative for other fake victims to come forward. But if there are people, even if neighbours start saying, yes, yes, we saw this, we heard that, we didn't feel it was our business, they were a powerful family, we didn't want to get involved, but yes, there was this, there was that. Even your own medical records from childhood give some telltale signs away. So if a child is being raped, even under drugging that the child has no memory of, there will be some symptoms, there will be some medical ailments, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's all important as well. But so where are you at now in terms of, are you still with that partner, or you're just good friends now?
No, we're still, like, he still supports me. We're still partners. It's been extremely difficult.
Yeah, I
the
believe.
last 2 years. It's like we've been living in a waiting room, you know. You can't start to get on with your life until...
Yeah, I understand. Did you manage to get some kind of permanent housing?
I got a council flat, and would you believe it's right across the road from the station? Like, I couldn't be nearer to the station.
Wow, that's convenient for surveillance.
It is. Oh, Jesus, it's very convenient, yeah. But, like, I'm right across the road, and it's like there are a million worlds between us.
How have your family been towards you, since they probably have an idea that you're starting to remember and starting to expose?
Oh yeah, as soon as I broke off the leash, my father sent this voice message, like, he's very, very worried, and he needed to talk to me about something. It's like they were lying all my life, and right up to when I broke away, it's like just lifting a veil, you know. But I cut off all contact with all family, all relations, all everything.
Okay, that's probably healthy for you while you're going through the
memories,
Yeah, that's probably a healthy thing you did. So, and have you experienced any targeting? Have you experienced any harassment by the family or the police or the Gardaí?
I know, looking back over my life, that I was a targeted individual. I mean, I was persecuted by everybody. I mean, every single step in my life was difficulty. I mean, I went to college 4 times, and I could never get a grant. And you know, I worked like a slave. I worked like, you know, I did every possible thing I could, and it was only that I went in to do I got loans from the bank and everything to go to college, and I worked in between. And you know, when I did the PhD, I got an internship for the last 2 years of it, which was great.
Do you mind if I ask where the internship was, or what it was?
Oh, it was in the college, and when I taught some classes throughout the year, and in lieu of that, then the college paid my tuition fees.
Okay.
You know,
and was this Limerick University?
It was Mary Immaculate College.
Wow.
Yeah, I was there about 8 years. It was like a home from home for me. You know, it was really.
College. And is that part of the Limerick University?
Yeah, it's under the auspices of UL, but it's quite independent in its own kind of function.
Yeah.
Only that the president of UL would come out to Mary Ide for graduation and give us parchments.
The president of where?
The president of the University of Limerick.
Oh, okay. So it operated independently, but it was under the umbrella.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
UL, right. So you graduated from there, but you couldn't ever realise your potential. You couldn't ever get the job or whatever.
Yeah, everything was a struggle. Everything was a struggle. Every single thing was a struggle. It was like I was blacklisted, you know? Yeah,
I totally get that. I agree. I've had the same experience. And what about, have you had any Gardaí harassment? Have you had it? I'm not saying you did, but have you?
I can't quite nail that down with the memories, but I do remember police coming to the house before.
That's a childhood, yeah. But I'm just saying, since you reported 2 years ago, almost 2 years.
I haven't really. I haven't noticed it now, to be honest.
Okay, that's good. That's great. That's great to hear. All right. Well, what I'd like you to do is email me, if you don't mind, your memory of flashback, your you know, and
Yeah, well, of
by
course,
taking a week, I'll have to wait until I'm not going to be triggered to hell and back, you know.
of course, yeah.
Email that to me. And you said, do you have good legal representation at the moment?
Not on the criminal side. I would have on the civil side, but I can't get
And
that.
are you taking civil proceedings?
Oh, I am, yeah.
Okay, and how far along with that are you?
Well, I can't start the proceedings until I have the statement. You see, so I'm sort of caught in a gridlock, you know.
Oh, so it could be that the Gardaí don't want to take your criminal statement, because then it could open up a civil suit, which would open up a can of worms.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
It's an awful gridlock, yeah.
Wow, okay, I get that. Now, I'm if I were able to have Senior Gardaí look into this, would that be okay with you?
Oh, brilliant, yeah, absolutely.
All I can promise is to run it past. See, I still believe there are some good Gardaí.
Yeah.
I still believe there are some good.
Yeah, I've met some lovely Gardaí in here.
So
I really have. They're really sympathetic and really nice. You know?
Yeah, and I've got a meeting booked with one next week, and I will run this past him. And just, it's not the only case. I've had another very, very serious case reported to me.
Yeah.
I want to say to him, you know, you're quite a senior Garda. Can you do anything about this? Can you investigate why this is jammed up? I've had actually 3 cases of huge corruption in the Gardaí, including GSOC. And that's one of the things I'm going to do in this meeting next week is say, look, you know, Drew Harris or yourself or whoever, is anybody seriously going to look at Garda corruption or Garda dragging their feet, Garda coercion, you know, like just corroborate. They may think to themselves, we don't want to expose a national politician known to everybody. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's no excuse. That's no excuse.
There was a new head of police, we'll say, in Limerick. I forget the proper term for it, but he was the chief of police or whatever brought into Henry Street in 2018. And he's looking at organised crime and stuff like that. Now, like, my family were very, very heavily involved in organised crime, organised to the max.
Okay, and what do you mean by that? Do you mean drugs or what?
I think mostly trafficking and prostitution.
Wow. And do you think that if we can even get some proof on any of this, the satanic ritual abuse and the child trafficking is hard to prove.
It is.
It's a bit like they caught Al Capone with his tax returns, and you know, they may catch the Clintons with their, you know, charitable foundation. If we could find some evidence on any of these threads, it could unravel all the other threads.
Yeah.
So
well, you see, there was a lot of gang stalking as well around the family. Now, in the last couple of months, 2 family relations made contact with me through Messenger. Now, I thought that when I deleted them all off Facebook, that was it, that they were all blocked. But anyway, they managed to get through a Messenger. And I asked them, you know, about, I tried to mention the abuse or ask about kids, and then they totally denied it. So my partner shot back a message to them, you know, and they just sent back this kind of a frown face or something, which totally annihilated their message of care and concern about me, you know. Right.
So they sent you a message saying, "Oh, we're concerned about you. We were worried about you," and you say, "I've remembered rape by Uncle so and so and my father and this one and that one."
Well, I didn't go into that much detail, but I just kind of said about abuse, or I asked them about kids I had, and they totally denied it.
Oh, but right. So you asked about children, births that you remember that weren't registered. Right. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I think for the first interview, that's fantastic. And I'll send you my email address. If you email me,
brilliant.
And I'll talk to this person, this person next week that I'm meeting with, and just see if there is a commitment to uncover, you know, if there's any appetite amongst the Gardaí to look at this stuff and to uncover it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I have called Harcourt Street because of the delay in Henry Street, and they said to me that you shouldn't be feeling this way, you should be feeling more supported and different things. And I called, I was with the Rape Crisis Centre here in Limerick for about a year and a half, but it's very hard to receive any therapy when everything's still pie in the sky, you know? And when I called the Rape Crisis Centre in Dublin, they put me straight onto Harcourt Street. Harcourt Street, I called them a few times. And in the last year and a half, we'll say, the detectives have changed around. So there's some bit of a shift, but it's constantly hammering on the door. It's crazy. Do you know what I mean?
Right. And basically, the short-term goal is to get your statement taken within the next month.
Exactly.
All right, let me see what I can do. I can't promise anything, but I certainly appreciate you coming to me.
Yeah, I appreciate it too, Angela. Thanks. And I like the truth is the most important, and getting it out there and, you know, talking about it, breaking the silence. That's the most important.
Yeah. All right, Lillian, I'll talk to you again really soon, and thank you so much for your courage. And I just would say again to people, we had Lillian on camera at the beginning of this interview, and then the internet wasn't strong enough. So that was the other question, just to know how you're doing. Are you getting counselling? Are you working? And you said you're safely housed, even though it's opposite the barracks. But are you working, and are you getting any mental health support?
No, I haven't worked since that night that I woke up. I mean, I'm too distracted, you know. I mean, it's only when I woke up that I realised how dissociated I was. You know?
Okay. And have you had because I got a diagnosis originally of borderline personality disorder, and then from my own research and from reaching out and getting support, I went back to them and said, can you please assess me for DID, which is possibly a more accurate dissociative identity disorder, very often associated with childhood drugging and rape and so on. And it took them probably 9 months to do that assessment, and then they said, well, yes, you do come back positive, but we need to tell you we have nowhere in Ireland that deals with this. We have no
because they don't expect, there's a culture of not expecting victims to recover.
Well, I reached out, I got given support from ministry in America. Unfortunately, it was just Skype Connect, but I had 6 months of counselling for DID.
Yeah, well, I contacted Daniel Lee and over in Alaska, and he's brilliant with the research that he does.
Give me that name again. Who was that?
Daniel Lee.
And where is he from?
He lives in Alaska.
Alaska. Oh, I know him.
Yeah.
You mean Dandelion? I've done a couple of.
He said he knows you. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a couple of interviews with him. And what did he advise you?
Well, he said that he knows I'm kind of still kind of in the early stages of remembering and stuff, you know. But he put me in contact. He said that he will interview me, and then he said that he put me in contact with some friends of his who are also SRA survivors, and I've called them as well privately, and they've been great support as well, you know.
Yeah, I did a couple of interviews with Daniel.
Yeah, I think I heard one of them. Yeah, it was very good. Yeah, it was very good.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's great. It's great when you finally find people who understand.
I know. We need to network. We definitely need to network. All right. I'll stay in touch. Say a prayer for me next week while I go to this meeting and see if I can get some response from the Gardaí. And I'll send you a link of this unlisted, and then take a couple of days and just decide whether or not you want to release this or not.
Sure. Thanks a million.
Do send. I'll send you my email. Do send me the background documents. I know we haven't gone into much detail here, and maybe on a second interview we might go into a bit more detail, but most people find this stuff so hard to grasp that it sends them straight into cognitive dissonance, and we don't want to do that. We want to say to people, forget about reptiles and Nephilim and fallen angels and blah, blah, blah. Let's just get real with what we can prove or corroborate. All right. God bless, Lillian. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a million, Angie. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.